Ava's whereabouts have become quite the mystery setup for the Lost Master arc, but what if there's a chance that she hasn't been as absent as we initially thought? Welcome back everyone, this is your girl Empowered Muse, and today we're going to take a deeper dive into Ava's possible whereabouts. So we know that Ava was one of the foretellers during the Age of Fairy Tales in Kingdom Hearts Union Cross, but she seemed to disappear after the Keyblade War of that time. And what's more is that she didn't reappear when summoned by Luxu in the epilogue of Kingdom Hearts 3, which brought about a prevailing question for the next arc, just where is Ava? But instead of looking at just one or two possibilities, we're actually going to review a few of the top theories surrounding this mystery and tease out which ones are most likely. No, I actually don't have a 100% answer, but I think we'll be closer to the truth about what happened to Ava after we tease out these theories. Alright, so let's revisit this theory that Ava somehow lived out her life and even wound up being Kairi's grandmother, and granted this theory kind of floated around in the earlier days before we got a clearer timeline of the events between Union Cross and Kingdom Hearts 3, but I think we can agree at this point that this is probably the most unlikely theory for what happened to Master Ava. Actually, there might be a way that Ava may have acted as Kairi's grandmother or something to that effect, but we'll get to that part later. So the biggest counterpoints to this argument are that firstly, Ava being a foreteller somehow enables her to live through multiple eras, to where she could be summoned or travel through different timelines, so simply passing of old age doesn't seem to be a valid possibility amongst the foretellers, at least at this point. I mean, sure, perhaps there's a chance that a foreteller could choose to give up that ability or opt to not use it, but for the purposes of the Master's mission, and based on what Ava learned of the Master's plans from Luxu, I don't think growing old would be her actual decision. But the other counterpoint that would make this theory fall in the unlikely range is that there are too many generations between the Age of Fairy Tales and when we see Kairi with her grandmother. Again, in Ava's case specifically, there is a workaround to this, but basing off of the Kingdom Hearts timeline alone, Ava would have to be hundreds of years old by the time baby Kairi was around. And we already see that those in the Kingdom Hearts world age fairly naturally, with Master Xehanort being in his 80s by the end of Kingdom Hearts 3. So an old Master Ava would have likely been around during the time of Missing Link and not the time of Birth by Sleep. So again, this is really an older theory, and since we've gotten more information about the timeline history of the Kingdom Hearts universe during Dark Road and in preparation for Missing Link, I think we can say this would be ranked as the most unlikely theory out there. So I actually haven't seen much of this theory floating around, but for the sake of covering bases, let's explore whether there's a possibility that Master Ava has actually fallen to darkness. And the short answer to that is anything is possible. But honestly, this would be another unlikely theory if it is in fact out there. So yes, Ava is a foreteller and therefore a very powerful Keyblade wielder, but because of the Master's plans to use all the foretellers as vessels for those darknesses to host and later fight, maybe a preemptive strike happened with Ava and the darkness she was hosting. And if that strike did in fact happen, did it overtake Ava to the point that her heart ended up steeped in darkness, much like Terra's battles with Master Xehanort? We actually don't know just how the Master plans to battle these darknesses, but based on his explanations to Luxu, it seems that he's not necessarily sacrificing his apprentices to darkness, but because the true darknesses they hold are formless, they have to be extracted from the foretellers in order to be fought as just one of the possible strategies. And we kind of saw this with Ventus and Vanitas when Vanitas did take on a form after being extracted from Ven. And if Xehanort's inklings were correct, Vanitas was a pure darkness just kind of hiding out in Ven from the days of Union Cross, and not necessarily a darkness that grew naturally in Ven. So going back to the extraction plan, it seems that the Master of Masters is expecting to do something similar, where the extracted pure darknesses take a similar form to the foretellers but can be fought and defeated. So again, unless a pure darkness went rogue and basically took over Ava, causing her to fall to darkness, I don't really see this being the case of what happened to Ava. And even if that were the case, it doesn't really answer the question of where Ava is now, because there would still be some Ava-like figure walking around, just a dark version. But with how powerful Ava was in the first place and her determination to carry light into the future, this is still pretty unlikely, but not out of the realm of possibility. So this is basically a combination of theories I saw recently, and it's essentially the question of what if Ava was actually the true Dandelion, the one Luxu placed in the arc to take light into the future instead of Strelitzia. And come off of that, what if it was Ava who was deemed Subject X in Ansem's lab instead of perhaps Gold? Because these two mysteries are left just open-ended enough to entertain this alternative possibility, this actually would be a theory that I would give a roughly even chance of being likely. We don't necessarily know how Ava fared in that Keyblade War, only that she struck at Luxu, then brought her union to the Keyblade graveyard, then told player to get out of there, and that was it. There were some things that were shown out of order throughout Key back cover and Union Cross for the sake of storytelling, but this little part I think was told fairly straightforward. So we could say that maybe Luxu found Master Ava collapsed in the Keyblade graveyard post-Keyblade War and placed her in the Ark, and maybe as part of Ava's injuries, her shape-shifting abilities went a little rogue, so she looked like Strelitzia as opposed to her original self as Luxu guided her. And with Ava being transported to the future world line as a light, maybe she landed and woke up near Radiant Garden or Ansem's lab, where she was deemed Subject X. By then, her mask might have been removed to reveal that she did in fact have dark hair, or again, her shape-shifting abilities went a bit haywire and she presented as Skull or someone who looked similar to Skull. But if you remember from the limited instances we saw Ava's shapeshift, her full body takes on the appearance of the person, so any height or vocal or weight differences wouldn't affect who she was imitating at the moment. An even darker possibility with this theory is that Subject X wrote of a man with an eye patch taking them from the lab. So say the man with an eye patch did take Ava from the lab, but where did he place her? The black box that Luxu was carrying around may have been emptier than we realized when it was given to him initially in Key back cover, and granted, the master told Luxu that the box had hope. So what if Luxu was actually told to place Ava in the box as opposed to something already being in there, because Ava was in fact the hope for the post-Keyblade War future? Meaning that Luxu placed Ava in the Ark post-Keyblade War, found where she landed in Ansem's lab, and placed her in the black box before the events of Kingdom Hearts 3. Yeah, damn, that is pretty dark, huh? A slight alternative and possibly lighter scenario is that it's not actually Ava, but rather Ava's data placed in the box. If data versions of the foretellers also exist while Ava is still off doing her own thing or keeping an eye on what all is going on in somewhere like Quadratum, I think overall this theory has a roughly even chance of actually being the case. And until we learn a little bit more about Skuld, or Subject X, or maybe even Strelitzia, this entire set of scenes with the Ark and the lab and the secret reports will be more open with these possibilities. Okay, so remember me mentioning Ava being a shapeshifter? Yeah, I'm sure there's a good reason this detail was brought up in Union Cross, and I think we have to consider that Master Ava might have been with us in some form at some point throughout the Kingdom Hearts games. So I did have a small list of who Ava could have portrayed or imitated throughout the story so far, from Demyx to Luxord to even Yozora, but ultimately I couldn't quite fully have a sound and counterpoint proof argument for Ava to shift into any of those, at least not as a long-term masquerade, because each of those seem to have developed into their own character throughout the story. However, I will say that this particular scene with Luxord and Xigbar, or Luxu, was very interesting when looking at it from a different lens. The scene itself with Luxord becoming suspicious of Xigbar was very interesting on its own, but when seeing Luxord ask,
Xigbar, who are you really?
from a different perspective, that maybe Luxord in that moment is really an Ava apparition trying to figure out if that is in fact Luxu, it adds a whole nother layer. And there we could even view the Yozora Luxord scene after Sora's victory over Yozora, or in the true ending, as there's something more here. Because how exactly could Luxord see into Yozora's dreams so hard to ask if what he saw was impressive? Of course, without further context, he could have been referring to something entirely different, but working with what we have, Luxord's comment currently alludes to him having the power to see further into a person's heart or dreams, or it was really Ava masquerading in that scene. So this kind of brings me back to the Kairi's grandma theory in that, yes, Ava is very unlikely to be Kairi's actual biological grandmother, but that doesn't mean she couldn't have shifted into Kairi's grandma to tell her the story about how children carried light into the future post-Keyblade War. And so I think the Ava shape-shifting throughout time, and even to where she's possibly masquerading someone in Quadratum when the other foretellers were summoned, is the most likely theory to date on her whereabouts. Hell, this could even mean that Ava at some point shape-shifted into Luxu for whatever reason, maybe even in that epilogue with the other foretellers. Without much more context, it's kind of up in the air of just who and where Ava's been throughout the series. And so I think Ava will probably be the foreteller we see the most from in this next arc outside of Luxu. And as far as the mystery of her whereabouts, I do think that's something we'll get more clues to starting in Kingdom Hearts 4. But I also think that Ava's disappearance and possible actions will end up being one of the driving forces to how the Lost Master arc is resolved overall. So we'll likely get some answers soon, but her whole story won't be finished for a while. But I want to hear from you, so let me know where you think Ava's been this whole time in the comments below. If you want to explore some more Kingdom Hearts theories, I'll be linking another Kingdom Hearts theory video here in the end screen. And as always, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoyed this video and want to watch more Kingdom Hearts content. And if there's anyone who may have questions about what to expect for the upcoming Kingdom Hearts games, be sure to share this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.